Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. Trent Calloway had spent his entire life building. First, it was model airplanes in his mother Vivian's garage, then houses with his construction company, and finally a family he believed would withstand any storm. At 45, Trent stood 6'2" with weathered hands and storm-gray eyes that missed nothing. His company, Cornerstone Development, had transformed from a small residential contractor into one of Phoenix's premier commercial builders. "You've always had your mother's determination," his father Russell would say, clapping him on the shoulder with what Trent once mistook for pride. Trent's wife Melody played her part beautifully, the devoted spouse who managed their social calendar and charmed potential clients at dinner parties in their desert mansion. With her auburn hair and practiced smile, she'd been by his side for 18 years. Their son, Devin, now 16, had inherited Trent's analytical mind and his grandmother Vivian's quiet resilience. The family fortune, primarily from Vivian's side, loomed large in their lives. Vivian Calloway had built a real estate empire from nothing, working ruthlessly through the 1980s housing boom while her husband Russell managed the books. The inheritance would be substantial, with Trent as primary beneficiary. When Vivian was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer, Trent spent every spare moment at Desert Palms Medical Center. Melody's visits grew increasingly sporadic as the weeks passed. "She's always been uncomfortable around illness," Trent explained to his mother one afternoon, noticing how Vivian's piercing blue eyes followed him with unusual intensity. "Some people can't face mortality," Vivian replied, her once commanding voice now frail. "Others can't face the truth." 2 days before his mother slipped into her final coma, she asked for Devin alone. Trent thought nothing of it. Vivian had always shared a special bond with her grandson. That evening, Trent found Melody in their bedroom, frantically texting. She jumped when he entered, clutching the phone to her chest. "Work emergency," she explained, though Melody hadn't worked since Devin was born. As his mother's condition deteriorated, Trent noticed Russell spending more time at the hospital, not with Vivian, but pacing the hallways outside her room, constantly checking his phone. When their eyes met across the hospital cafeteria, Russell's gaze slid away too quickly. The morning Vivian died, Trent was alone with her. Russell had left to get some air, and Melody had texted that she was stuck in traffic. Trent held his mother's hand as her breathing slowed, then stopped altogether. He sat there for nearly an hour afterward, remembering how she'd taught him to nail his first 2x4 when he was 8 years old. "Always check your foundation twice," she told him. "Everything that follows depends on it." Trent never realized his own foundation was already crumbling beneath him. Chapter 2. The Veil Drops. The Canyon View funeral home filled with Phoenix's business elite. Vivian Calloway's death at 68 had sent ripples through the real estate community. Trent stood stoically greeting guests, his hand occasionally reaching to straighten his mother's photograph on the memorial display. Melody arrived 20 minutes late in a black dress that hugged her curves inappropriately. Russell hovered near the refreshment table, accepting condolences with practiced solemnity. Devin sat alone in the front row, unusually composed for a teenager facing his first significant loss. During the eulogy, Trent spoke of his mother's strength and foresight. "She built not just buildings, but legacies," he said, voice unwavering. "She taught me that true strength isn't in what you possess, but in what you protect." From his peripheral vision, Trent noticed Russell and Melody exchange glances. Twice. When Trent returned to his seat, Devin squeezed his father's hand, a gesture so uncommon from the typically reserved teenager that Trent felt his composure slip for the first time. After the ceremony, as guests mingled in the reception hall, Trent observed Melody constantly checking her phone. She flinched when it vibrated during a conversation with Vivian's former business partner. "Excuse me," she murmured, stepping away to check the message. Trent followed, maintaining distance. From across the room, he watched her face transform. First surprise, then a flash of something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. She quickly texted back, then resumed her performance as the grieving daughter-in-law. 10 minutes later, Russell disappeared into the men's room, phone in hand. Trent approached his wife as she accepted a glass of wine from a server. Everything okay? You seem distracted. Just some drama with the charity gala committee, she replied, not quite meeting his eyes. Nothing important today. The lie hung between them. As guests began departing, Melody set her empty wine glass down and excused herself to powder her nose. When she left her purse at their table, something cold and certain settled in Trent's chest. He waited 3 heartbeats, then reached for her phone. No password. Melody had always been careless that way, confident in Trent's trust. He opened her messages and saw his father's name at the top of her recent contacts. The latest message read simply, "She's gone. We're free." Trent's hands didn't shake as he scrolled upward through thousands of messages spanning years. Intimate exchanges, secret meetings, plans for after Vivian's death, discussions of Trent's inheritance and how they would access it after taking care of him. And worse, much worse, mocking comments about Trent's devotion to his mother. Melody's complaints about Trent's work ethic and Russell's assurances that soon we won't have to pretend anymore. Trent didn't realize how long he'd been standing there until he felt a hand on his arm. It was Devin, looking older than his 16 years. "Dad," he said quietly, "they're ready to leave for the burial." Trent slipped the phone into his pocket instead of returning it to Melody's purse. At the graveside, Trent stood between his wife and father as the casket was lowered. When Melody reached for his hand, he let her take it, his face expressionless. Russell placed an arm around Trent's shoulders, squeezing in mock support. Their touch felt like acid on his skin. Chapter 3, Revelations. The reception at the Calloway mansion grew subdued as evening approached. Trent moved mechanically through conversations, accepting condolences with empty thanks. His mind cataloged every interaction between Melody and Russell. A brush of fingers when passing a drink, a lingering glance across the room. The way they seemed to communicate without words. In his peripheral vision, Trent saw Russell check his watch repeatedly. Melody had disappeared to the kitchen to supervise the catering staff. The pattern was clear now. When only close family remained, Trent excused himself and found Melody in their bedroom, changing shoes. Her phone, the spare she kept in her nightstand, lit up with a text. Trent moved with surprising calm, plucking it from her hand. "What are you doing?" she snapped, reaching for it. Trent held it away, Russell's message visible on the screen. "Meet me in 20. Back in trance." "Interesting," Trent said, his voice dangerously soft. "Planning another secret rendezvous with my father?" The color drained from Melody's face. "What are you talking about?" "Don't," Trent said. "I read your messages. All of them." For a moment, Melody's eyes widened with genuine fear. Then, remarkably, she laughed. A cold, brittle sound that Trent had never heard from her before. "Well, this is inconvenient timing," she said, straightening her shoulders. "We were hoping to have this conversation under more controlled circumstances. Russell and I," she said, no longer pretending. "Though I suppose formalities are unnecessary now." Trent's composure held. "How long? Does it matter?" 7 years, if you're counting. 7 years. Devin had been 9. Trent had been expanding the business, working 14-hour days. "Why?" The question emerged barely audible. Melody's smile turned predatory. "At first, boredom. You were always working, and Russell was attentive." She shrugged. "Then we realized we had common interests, primarily financial ones." Trent felt ice spreading through his veins. "My mother's money." "Your mother's empire," Melody corrected. "Which would have been Russell's if Vivian hadn't been so controlling." "Did you never wonder why she kept him sidelined all those years?" "She knew his potential. She feared it. She knew he was weak," Trent countered. "A parasite." "Visionary," Melody shot back. "While you were playing with your little construction projects, Russell was seeing the bigger picture." Trent laughed, the sound hollow. "And what picture is that?" "The two of you running off with my inheritance after what? Eliminating me somehow." The words felt ridiculous saying aloud, but Melody's expression confirmed his worst suspicions. "It wasn't personal," she said. "Just practical. Vivian changed her will last year, made things more complicated." Her eyes narrowed. "We had to adapt our timeline." The casual way she discussed his planned elimination sent a cold wave of clarity through Trent. He looked at this woman, the mother of his child, his partner of nearly 2 decades, and saw a complete stranger. "I'm going downstairs," Trent said, pocketing both phones. "We'll continue this conversation with my father present." In the living room, Russell was checking his watch again when Trent approached, Melody trailing behind. "Everything okay?" Russell asked, his concern obviously performative. "No," Trent replied. "Everything is not okay." He tossed Melody's phones onto the coffee table. Recognition flashed in Russell's eyes. "Let's not make a scene," Russell said quietly, glancing at the few remaining guests. "Why not?" Trent's voice rose. "Isn't that what funerals are for? Truth-telling." He turned to face the small gathering. "My father and wife have been having an affair for 7 years. They plan to access my inheritance after my mother died, possibly by eliminating me." Gasps echoed through the room. Russell's face hardened. "You're grief-stricken," he said loudly. "Not thinking clearly." "I've never thought more clearly," Trent replied. "Show them the messages, Melody. Tell them about your plans." Melody's expression shifted to cold amusement. "Why bother denying it? Yes, Russell and I are together. Yes, we had plans for the inheritance. Your mother built an empire that Russell helped create. He deserves his share. My mother built everything despite him," Trent countered. "Your mother," Melody said with sudden venom, "knew about us for years but was too weak to tell you. She suspected for years, confirmed it last year. She could have told you any time, but she protected you like the mama's boy you've always been." The words landed like physical blows. Trent felt something fundamental shift inside him, some final pillar of restraint crumbling. Before he could respond, Devin stepped forward from the hallway doorway. Trent hadn't realized his son was listening. "That's a lie," Devin said, his teenage voice cracking slightly. His face was pale but determined as he held up a USB drive. "Grandma gave me this before she died. She told me to give it to Dad if anything seemed wrong after she was gone. She said it would protect Dad." Melody lunged for the drive, but Trent moved faster, placing himself between his son and wife. The remaining guests stood frozen, witnessing the family implosion with horrified fascination. "What's on it?" Trent asked his son. "Everything," Devin answered. "Grandma knew what they were planning. She had someone watching them for months. There are photos, recordings, evidence of what they were going to do to you." Russell's face contorted with rage. "Give me that drive, boy. Get out," Trent said, his voice deadly calm. "Both of you get out of my house now." "Your house?" Melody laughed again. "This house is part of Vivian's estate, and with the new will. The new will designates everything to Devin and me." Trent interrupted. "Mom told me about the changes months ago. You've been working with outdated information." The shock on both their faces confirmed they hadn't known. "You're lying," Russell spat. "Try me," Trent challenged. "Now get out before I have you removed." As Russell and Melody gathered their things, Trent turned to his son. "When did you know?" he asked quietly. "I suspected something was wrong last year," Devin replied. "Grandma confirmed it when she gave me the drive 3 days before she died. She made me promise to wait, said timing was everything." Trent placed a hand on his son's shoulder, the last remaining person he could trust. "We'll review it together," he said, "and then we'll decide what happens next." As Russell and Melody walked out the front door, Trent felt something new replacing his shock, a cold, methodical fury that demanded satisfaction. The contractor in him recognized when a structure couldn't be salvaged, when the only option was complete demolition before rebuilding. He watched them drive away, already calculating how to dismantle their lives piece by calculated piece. Chapter 4: Digital Legacy. The house emptied of guests by midnight, leaving only whispers and shocked departures in their wake. Trent sat with Devin in his home office, the USB drive between them on the mahogany desk. "Are you sure you want to see this?" Trent asked his son. Devin nodded, his jawline, so like Vivian's, set firm. "Grandma made me promise to stick with you through whatever happens next." The drive contained dozens of files meticulously organized into folders: surveillance, financial, communications, contingencies. Vivian Calloway had been thorough in death as she was in life. The surveillance folder held photos of Melody and Russell together dating back 6 years, not 7 as Melody had claimed. At high-end hotels, at a lake house Trent didn't recognize, entering and exiting Russell's downtown apartment. Some images showed them reviewing documents, heads bent together over papers spread across restaurant tables. "Byron Foster," Devin said, pointing to a notation on one of the files. "Your grandmother's security chief," Trent confirmed. "She must have hired him privately for this." The financial folder revealed the true extent of Russell's betrayal. Not content with the affair, he had been systematically undermining Vivian's business for years. Small sabotages, redirected investments, strategic mistakes that looked like bad luck but showed a pattern. What shocked Trent most was evidence that Russell had been skimming from the business since before Trent was even born. Mom knew, Trent whispered. She knew and kept him around anyway. The next file explained why. A recorded conversation between Vivian and her lawyer from 18 months earlier. I've known about Russell's activities for decades. Vivian's voice emerged from the computer speakers. Initially, I stayed to protect Trent from the scandal. Later, I kept Russell close because enemies are best watched directly. The affair with Melody confirmed my suspicions that they would eventually target Trent. The new will is my countermove. The communications folder contained intercepted text messages and emails far more damning than what Trent had seen on Melody's phone. The most recent exchanges discussed specific plans. Russell had found a doctor willing to gradually administer untraceable drugs that would mimic early-onset dementia, making Trent appear incompetent to manage his inheritance. They were going to poison you, Devin said, his voice breaking. Mom was going to poison you. Trent placed a hand on his son's shoulder. But they didn't get the chance. The contingencies folder contained Vivian's master stroke, her true will, different from the public one that would be read officially tomorrow, transferring all assets to an irrevocable trust controlled by Trent, with Devin as secondary trustee and beneficiary. Russell received nothing. Melody's portion, originally a courtesy sum of $1 million, had been reduced to a token $1 after Vivian confirmed the affair. There's a letter for you, Devin said, pointing to a Word document titled simply Trent. Trent opened it, his mother's voice seeming to rise from the words on screen. My son, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you've discovered the betrayal. I'm sorry I couldn't shield you from this pain. I kept silent not from weakness, but strategy. Russell and Melody needed to believe their plan was working until my assets were properly secured beyond their reach. You've always been a builder, Trent. You see potential where others see only rubble. But what you face now requires a different skill, the ability to dismantle with precision. Russell has made enemies throughout Phoenix over the decades. Melody has secrets beyond her affair with your father. The ammunition you need is in these files. Remember what I taught you about foundations. Theirs is built on sand. All you need to do is direct the tide. Whatever you choose, protect Devin. He is innocent in this, and stronger than either of us realized. With love and faith in your judgment, Mom. Trent closed the file, his expression unreadable. What happens now? Devin asked. Now, Trent said quietly, we get some rest. Tomorrow, we begin. Later, alone in his room, Trent didn't sleep. Instead, he reviewed the files again, making notes, identifying leverage points, and mapping connections. By dawn, the contractor had become an architect of a different sort, one who designed not structures, but systematic destruction. Chapter 5, Cornerstones of Revenge. The will reading proceeded exactly as Vivian had planned. Trent watched Russell and Melody's faces transform from smug anticipation to stunned disbelief as the lawyer detailed the irrevocable trust arrangement. This can't be right, Russell interrupted. Vivian and I discussed. My client was quite explicit. The lawyer, Pamela Novak, replied coolly. The instructions were updated 6 months ago with 2 witnesses and a medical evaluation confirming her sound mind. Melody's manicured nails dug into her palms. We'll contest it. You're welcome to try, Pamela replied, sliding a document across the table. Mrs. Calloway anticipated that response. This is a record of transferred assets completed over the past year. The estate as defined in this will contains only 15% of her total holdings. The remainder transferred to the trust months ago. As they left the lawyer's office, Russell grabbed Trent's arm. This isn't over. Actually, Trent replied, removing Russell's hand like it was something diseased. It's just beginning. 2 days later, Russell arrived at his downtown apartment to find the locks changed and an eviction notice posted. The building, apparently, had been owned through a shell company controlled by Vivian's trust. When he tried accessing his bank accounts, he discovered them frozen, the result of a fraud investigation initiated by a file anonymously submitted to the Arizona Department of Financial Services detailing 2 decades of embezzlement from Vivian's companies. Melody fared no better. She returned from a lunch with her society friends to find her credit cards declined. When she called the bank in a rage, she was informed that the supplementary cards on Trent's accounts had been canceled. Her personal accounts, primarily funded by Trent over the years, contained barely enough to cover a month's expenses. That evening, she arrived at the desert mansion to find the security codes changed and her belongings packed in boxes in the garage. "You can't do this," she hissed when Trent answered her furious pounding on the door. "Community property applies only to assets acquired during marriage," Trent explained calmly. "This house was my mother's, now mine through the trust. Your name was never on the deed. I need money, Trent. Be reasonable." "I'll have divorce papers drawn up," he replied. "Standard settlement. More than you deserve. And if I go public, tell people you're trying to destroy your own father? How your mother was mentally unstable at the end." Trent smiled without warmth. "Try it. The surveillance folder makes compelling viewing. I've already shared select portions with the boards of your 3 favorite charities. Check your email. I believe your committee positions have been reconsidered." Her phone chimed as if on cue. Melody's face drained of color as she read the messages. "You're destroying my life," she whispered. "No," Trent corrected. "I'm simply removing what was never yours to begin with." Over the following week, Trent methodically implemented his mother's contingency plans while adding refinements of his own. Russell discovered he had been removed from his remaining consulting positions through a series of emails detailing ethical concerns backed by documentation from Vivian's files. Melody found her social circle rapidly contracting as Trent strategically shared evidence of her betrayal with key Phoenix socialites known for their discreet but effective gossip. When Russell attempted to access funds from former business associates, they mysteriously declined after receiving anonymous documentation of his history of deception. "You've thought of everything," Byron Foster remarked during their meeting in Trent's office. The former security chief had continued his surveillance at Trent's request. "Not me," Trent replied. "My mother did. I'm just the contractor following her blueprints." "Your father's getting desperate," Byron noted. "He tried contacting several of Vivian's old rivals yesterday. They refused him, but he'll keep trying." "Let him," Trent said. "Each attempt only widens the net." "And your son? How's he handling this?" Trent's expression softened slightly. "Better than I expected. Stronger than I was at his age." "He's worried about you," Byron observed. "Says you're not sleeping, barely eating." "There will be time for that later." Byron hesitated. "Vivian asked me to tell you something if things went this way," she said. "Remind Trent that demolition is only the first phase. The rebuilding is what matters." Trent nodded, but his eyes remained cold. First things first. That evening, Trent received a call from Russell's only remaining ally, his cousin Nate Bowden. "This has gone far enough, Trent," Nate said without preamble. "Russell's staying on my couch. He's a broken man. Is this the part where I'm supposed to feel something?" Trent asked. "He's your father, for God's sake." "No," Trent replied. "He's the man who married my mother, betrayed her for decades, seduced my wife, and planned to drug me into incompetence. Biology doesn't create obligations. He wants to meet." To explain his side, Trent considered this. "Riverfront Park. Tomorrow, noon. He comes alone." Nate sighed with relief. "Thank you. He'll be there." After hanging up, Trent called Byron. "I need surveillance on Russell tonight. If he contacts Melody, I want to know." "Already on it," Byron replied. "They met an hour ago at the West Side Diner. Seemed agitated." Melody left with a manila envelope. Trent's eyes narrowed. Find out what was in that envelope. The next pieces were moving into position, and Trent intended to stay 3 moves ahead. Chapter 6. Checkmate Gambit. The morning of the meeting with Russell, Trent received 2 significant calls. The first came from Pamela Novak. "There's been a development," she said. "Russell's hired Timothy Walsh to contest the will. They're claiming Vivian was being manipulated at the end." "By whom?" Trent asked. "By you," Pamela replied. "They're suggesting you coerced changes to the will while she was medicated." Trent laughed without humor. "That's quite the accusation from the man who was planning to drug me." "They don't know we have evidence of that plan," Pamela reminded him. "This could get messy." The second call came from Byron Foster. "We identified what was in the envelope. Medical records, specifically prescription histories for your mother during her final months. They're going to claim she wasn't competent," Trent concluded. "Can they make it stick?" "Unlikely," Byron replied. Your mother was thorough. The trust modifications were made during periods when her medical records show she was lucid and unmedicated. She had independent psychological evaluations done. Still, they only need to create enough doubt to force a settlement. No settlements, Trent said firmly. Not a dollar. At Riverfront Park, Trent found Russell already waiting on a bench overlooking the water. His father had aged years in mere weeks, his normally immaculate appearance now disheveled, his confident posture replaced by a hunched defensiveness. You came, Russell said, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm curious what possible explanation you think could matter, Trent replied, remaining standing. Russell sighed. Your mother and I, our marriage wasn't what you thought. Vivian was brilliant, but cold, calculating. She treated our relationship like another business acquisition. Save the revisionist history, Trent cut in. I've read her private journals from the trust documents. She loved you despite knowing exactly who you were. Russell's expression hardened. You've always seen her through a child's eyes. The great Vivian Calloway, infallible matriarch. She built her empire by crushing people, including me. I helped build her first development projects. My ideas, my connections. She took everything and left me as a glorified accountant. Is that how you justified stealing from her for 20 years? Russell flinched. I took what I deserved. And Melody? Was she what you deserved too? Melody came to me, Russell said, voice lowering. She was lonely. You were always working, obsessed with the business. She needed someone who valued her. Trent laughed bitterly. Valued her? You used her as a pawn to access my inheritance. I read your messages plotting to simulate my mental decline. How exactly does that demonstrate value? That was her idea, Russell said quickly. She thought if you were declared incompetent, control would revert to her as your wife. I just went along with it. Throwing her under the bus already? Trent shook his head. Pathetic, but predictable. Listen to me. Russell leaned forward. We can end this quietly. I'll sign whatever you want. A settlement. I made mistakes, but I'm still your father. DNA isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card, Trent replied. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit received an interesting package yesterday detailing your embezzlement. Your lawyer should be getting a call about that shortly. Russell's face drained of color. You wouldn't. I already did. Trent checked his watch. In fact, they're probably executing a search warrant at Nate's apartment right now, since that's your last known address. You're destroying me, Russell whispered. No, Trent corrected. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. What about Devin? Russell tried desperately. He shouldn't lose his grandfather over this. Something dangerous flashed in Trent's eyes. Don't you dare invoke my son's name. The same son you were willing to make an orphan through your schemes. It never would have gone that far, Russell protested. We'll never know, will we? Trent stood. The divorce filing against Melody goes public tomorrow. Your financial crimes investigation is already underway. I've declined to press charges for the murder conspiracy, as the evidence is circumstantial. That's the only mercy you'll get from me. As Trent walked away, Russell called after him. This won't bring Vivian back. Trent paused, but didn't turn around. No, but it will honor her final wishes. That evening, Trent received a text from an unknown number. You destroyed Russell. I still have leverage you don't know about. Meet tomorrow, or I release it. M. Trent showed the message to Devin. What leverage could she possibly have? Devin asked. Nothing, Trent replied. It's desperation, but I'll meet her anyway. Why? Because, Trent said, every good demolition needs a controlled implosion for the final phase. The meeting was set for the following afternoon at the Capitol Grill, once Melody's favorite restaurant. When Trent arrived, she was already seated, looking almost like her old self. Hair perfectly styled, makeup immaculate, posture confident. Only the slight tremor in her hand as she lifted her water glass betrayed her anxiety. Thank you for coming, she said, attempting to take control of the conversation. You mentioned leverage, Trent replied, not bothering with pleasantries. Melody's smile tightened. Always direct. I've missed that about you. No, you haven't. She reached into her purse and withdrew a small recorder. I have Russell on tape confessing that Vivian's trust modifications might not have been entirely her idea. That you might have influenced her decisions while she was medicated. Blackmail now. Trent raised an eyebrow. That's a federal offense on top of everything else. Not blackmail, Melody countered. Negotiation. I want what I'm entitled to as your wife of 18 years, 7 of which you spent sleeping with my father and plotting against me. Details she dismissed with a wave. The courts won't care about that. No-fault divorce state, remember? I get half of all marital assets. You've misunderstood something fundamental, Trent said quietly. I'm not here to negotiate. He removed his phone, tapped the screen, and placed it on the table. The voice of Timothy Walsh, Russell's lawyer, filled the air between them. I cannot continue this representation, Mr. Calloway. The evidence of financial crimes is overwhelming, and I cannot be party to what appears to be a conspiracy to commit fraud against the estate. Furthermore, any attempt to claim Mr. Trent Calloway influenced his mother's decisions is contradicted by extensive documentation, including video recordings of her explaining her decisions while demonstrably lucid. Melody's face paled. You recorded this conversation? Byron did, Trent corrected. The same way he recorded your meeting with Russell yesterday, where you concocted this blackmail attempt. The recorder in your hand contains nothing that would stand up to scrutiny. For the first time, genuine fear showed in Melody's eyes. What do you want? Sign the divorce agreement my lawyer sent yesterday. Walk away with the settlement offered, which is more generous than you deserve. Never contact me or Devin again. And if I refuse? Trent leaned forward. Then I press charges for conspiracy to commit murder, using the evidence from my mother's files. The recordings of you and Russell discussing drug protocols would be particularly compelling to a jury. Melody's hand trembled more visibly now. You wouldn't. Try me, Trent replied, his voice devoid of emotion. She stared at him, searching for any sign of the man she'd married. Finding none, she nodded once. I'll sign. But this isn't justice, Trent. This is vengeance. No, he corrected, standing to leave. Justice is what the courts will deliver to Russell. What I've given you is mercy. Remember that. As Trent walked out of the restaurant, he felt no satisfaction, no closure, only the cold certainty that the demolition phase was complete. What remained, he wasn't yet ready to consider. Chapter 7, Collateral Damage. 3 weeks after the confrontation with Melody, Trent sat in Pamela Novak's office reviewing the final divorce settlement. Melody had signed without further protest, accepting the terms, a one-time payment of $2 million, less than 10% of what she might have claimed under community property, the vacation house in Sedona, and her personal vehicles. In exchange, she waived all rights to Cornerstone Development, the family home, and any future claims against Trent or the Calloway Trust. She gave in surprisingly easily, Pamela observed. She recognized her position was untenable, Trent replied. Self-preservation is Melody's defining characteristic. And Russell? The federal investigation continues. His assets remain frozen. According to Byron, he's moved in with a former colleague in Tucson. Pamela hesitated. There's something else. Russell's medical records were subpoenaed as part of the financial investigation. He's been diagnosed with early-stage pancreatic cancer, the same disease that took your mother. Trent's expression didn't change. Ironic. Does it change anything for you? No, Trent said after a moment. He made his choices. Later that evening, Trent found Devin sitting by the pool, textbooks spread around him but clearly neglected. Since the funeral, his son had maintained perfect grades while helping Trent sort through Vivian's records, showing a maturity beyond his years. But tonight, something was different. Everything okay? Trent asked, taking a seat beside him. Devin shrugged. Mom called today. Trent tensed. What did she want? To explain her side. Said she never meant for things to go as far as they did with Russell. That she still loves me. What did you tell her? Nothing, Devin replied. I hung up. Trent nodded, uncertain what to say. The betrayal had been easier for him to process. He was an adult with a lifetime of experiences to contextualize it. For Devin, the foundation of his world had crumbled without warning. Do you think she ever loved us? Devin asked suddenly. Really loved us? Trent considered the question carefully. I think Melody loves the idea of people rather than the reality. She loved what we represented, stability, status, comfort. When those things were threatened, or something more exciting came along, that love wasn't enough. Grandma's letter said I was innocent in all this, Devin said. But sometimes I don't feel innocent. I saw things, moments between Mom and Russell that seemed off. I said nothing. You were a child. Are still, in many ways. Trent placed a hand on his son's shoulder. None of this is on you. I've been thinking about college, Devin said, changing subjects. MIT has an early admission program. Their architectural engineering program is top-ranked. Massachusetts is a long way from Phoenix. Maybe that's good, Devin suggested. A fresh start. For both of us. The idea caught Trent off guard. Since Vivian's death, he'd been focused solely on dismantling the betrayal, not on what came after. Massachusetts. New projects. New horizons. The possibility stirred something he thought had died with his mother's last breath, hope. We'll look into it, Trent promised. The next morning, Byron Foster arrived with unexpected news. Russell's medical condition has worsened, he reported. He's been admitted to Tucson Medical Center. Prognosis isn't good. The cancer is aggressive, just like your mother's was. Trent absorbed this information without visible reaction. Is he receiving proper care? Basic coverage through Medicare. His friends covering some expenses, but without access to his frozen assets. The implication hung in the air. Keep me informed, Trent said finally. There's more, Byron continued. Melody's been visiting him daily. According to my sources, she's been paying for upgraded care out of her settlement money. This detail pierced Trent's armor of indifference. Interesting. Want me to keep surveillance on them? Trent considered this, then shook his head. No, we know enough. After Byron left, Trent found himself standing in his mother's former office, now his. The room still held echoes of Vivian. Her collection of architectural models, her precise filing system, the view of Camelback Mountain she'd loved. On her desk sat a small framed photo Trent had recently rediscovered. Vivian holding infant Trent, with Russell standing proudly beside them. A family that never truly existed. His phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. Russell asking for you. Doctors give him weeks, not months. This isn't about money anymore. Trent stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. That night, he dreamed of his mother. Not the frail figure from her hospital bed, but Vivian in her prime, striding through construction sites, making decisive changes to blueprints, teaching him to identify load-bearing walls. The demolition is complete, Dream Vivian told him. What will you build now? He woke at dawn with the question echoing in his mind. Chapter 8. Inherited Truths. The admission letter from MIT arrived for Devin on a Tuesday morning in April, 6 months after Vivian's death. Full scholarship. Early admission for the fall semester. Congratulations, Trent said, genuine pride warming his voice for the first time in months. Your grandmother would have been ecstatic. I know, Devin replied quietly. I wish she could have seen it. They celebrated with dinner at Devin's favorite steakhouse. For a few hours, the weight of betrayal lifted, allowing glimpses of what their future might hold. During dessert, Devin broached the subject they'd both been avoiding. Russell doesn't have much time left, he said. Byron told me yesterday. Trent's expression closed. Byron shouldn't have involved you. I asked him, Devin admitted. I wanted to know. It changes nothing. Maybe not for you, Devin said carefully. But I've been thinking about what Grandma wrote, about protecting me because I'm innocent in this. What if that protection includes protecting me from regrets later? Trent set down his fork. What are you suggesting? That I want to see him. Once. Before he dies. Devin held up a hand before Trent could respond. Not to forgive him, just to understand. And to close that chapter before I leave for college. The request caught Trent off guard. Part of him wanted to refuse outright, to protect his son from further pain. But the maturity in Devin's eyes gave him pause. I'll consider it, Trent said finally. The next day, Trent reviewed the surveillance reports Byron had continued to collect despite his instructions to stop. Russell's condition had deteriorated rapidly. Melody remained by his side, apparently having abandoned her social rehabilitation efforts to focus on his care. The information stirred complex emotions Trent had successfully suppressed for months. Not grief or forgiveness, but questions. Why had his mother kept Russell in her life knowing what he was? What had Melody seen in Russell that she hadn't found in Trent? What truths might die with his father? 3 days later, Trent drove Devin to Tucson Medical Center. They made the journey mostly in silence, each lost in private thoughts. At the hospital, Trent waited in the corridor while Devin entered Russell's room alone. 30 minutes later, Devin emerged, his expression unreadable. He's asked to see you, Devin said. I told him you probably wouldn't come, but he insisted. Did you get what you needed? Trent asked. Devin considered the question. Not answers. There aren't really any that would make sense. But closure, maybe. Is Melody in there? No. She went to get coffee. Trent hesitated, then nodded once. Wait here. Russell Calloway barely resembled the man who had stood at Vivian's funeral 6 months earlier. Cancer had hollowed his cheeks and yellowed his skin. Tubes connected him to various machines, tracking his decline. His eyes, however, retained their sharpness as they fixed on Trent. I didn't think you'd come, Russell said, his voice raspy. I'm here for Devin, not you. Russell nodded weakly. He's a good kid. Better than either of us deserved. Speak for yourself. A ghost of a smile touched Russell's lips. Still no forgiveness. You really are your mother's son. Is that why you called me in here? For absolution? No, Russell replied. For truth. Sit down, Trent. Please. Against his better judgment, Trent took the chair beside the bed. I won't apologize for what I did, Russell began. Not because I don't recognize it was wrong, but because apologies are worthless against actions like mine. Finally, something we agree on. Your mother knew about my embezzlement from the beginning, Russell continued. Did you know that? She caught me 6 months into our marriage. She could have turned me in, divorced me, ruined me. Instead, she limited my access, monitored every transaction, and kept me. Trent frowned. Why would she do that? Because Vivian understood something fundamental about people. We're all broken, just in different ways. She saw my weakness for what it was. A man who never felt he measured up, always grasping for validation through money, power, conquests. That doesn't excuse. I'm not offering excuses, Russell interrupted. Only context. I failed as a husband, a father, and a man. The affair with Melody began because we recognized similar brokenness in each other. The constant need for more, for validation, for excitement. Spare me the psychoanalysis, Trent said coldly. Russell continued as if he hadn't spoken. What I need you to understand is this. Your mother kept me around partly to protect you from the truth about who I was, and partly because, despite everything, she loved me. Not the man I was, but the man she believed I could be. I failed her faith spectacularly. Is this supposed to make me feel something? Pity? Understanding? Trent's voice hardened. You plotted to simulate my mental decline. To take everything I'd built. Yes, Russell acknowledged. And there's no justification for that. But there is a warning. A warning. Russell's eyes fixed on Trent with sudden intensity. You're on a path I recognize, Trent. Righteous anger. Cold calculation. Methodical destruction of your enemies. I've watched you dismantle everything Melody and I built. Our reputations, finances, futures. You've been brilliant at it. Terrifying in your efficiency. Justice, Trent said simply. Perhaps. But revenge consumes the vessel that carries it. Russell's breathing grew labored. Your mother understood this. It's why she never acted against me despite knowing everything. She chose a different path. She chose weakness. No, Russell countered. She chose life. Creation over destruction. The ability to build despite knowing the foundation was flawed. A nurse entered to check Russell's vitals, giving Trent a moment to process these unexpected words. When they were alone again, Russell continued more weakly. In her final letter to you, did Vivian ask you to destroy me? The question caught Trent off guard. No. She provided the means, but left the choice to me. Exactly, Russell nodded. Your mother believed in accountability, but not obliteration. The trust arrangements, the evidence she gathered, those were protection, not ammunition. You're dying, Trent observed coldly. Trying to rewrite your legacy. I have no legacy, Russell replied. Only regrets and a son who hates me with complete justification. He coughed weakly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to consider what comes after the demolition. Vivian would want you to build something new, not spend your life guarding the ashes. The door opened as Melody returned with coffee. She froze upon seeing Trent, coffee cups clutched in white-knuckled hands. I'll leave you to your conspirator, Trent said, standing. She's paying for my care with her settlement money, Russell said quietly. No obligation to do so. No benefit to herself. Honor among thieves. Russell shook his head weakly. Complicated truths, Trent. Life is full of them. Your mother understood that better than anyone. As Trent reached the door, Russell called after him. The inheritance that matters isn't in the trust, son. It's in what Vivian taught you about building things that last. Melody stepped aside silently as Trent passed, their eyes meeting briefly. In hers, Trent saw not the calculation or manipulation he expected, but simple exhaustion, and something that might have been regret. In the corridor, Devin waited, watching his father's face carefully. "Did you get what you needed?" Devin asked, echoing Trent's earlier question. "No," Trent replied honestly, "but I got something to think about." On the drive back to Phoenix, with Devin asleep in the passenger seat, Trent found his thoughts returning to his mother's letter. "Remember what I taught you about foundations? Theirs is built on sand. All you need to do is direct the tide." For the first time, he wondered if he had misunderstood her meaning entirely. Chapter 9, Reconstructions. Russell Calloway died on a Thursday in May, with Melody at his bedside. Trent received the news from Byron with a simple nod of acknowledgement. No tears, no visible reaction. He did not attend the sparsely populated funeral. 2 weeks later, as Trent reviewed expansion plans for Cornerstone Development's entry into the Massachusetts market, his assistant announced an unexpected visitor. "Mrs. Calloway is here to see you, sir." Melody stood in his office doorway, thinner than he remembered, her usual perfect appearance slightly subdued. She carried a small box. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, her customary confidence notably absent. "What do you want, Melody?" She placed the box on his desk. Russell had these in his possession. "I thought they should go to you and Devin." Trent made no move to open it. "Is that all?" "No," Melody admitted, remaining standing though Trent had not invited her to sit. "I came to tell you I'm leaving Phoenix. Moving to Chicago where my sister lives. Your settlement money should last longer there," Trent observed coolly. A flash of the old Melody surfaced. "I'm not here for more money. Contrary to what you believe, I'm not completely mercenary. Evidence suggests otherwise." She sighed. "I deserve that. But people can be more than one thing, Trent. I can be both the woman who betrayed you and someone capable of caring for a dying man who had no one else." Touching redemption story. "Not redemption," Melody corrected. "Reality. I loved you once, before ambition and boredom corrupted it. I loved Devin always, still do, though I've lost the right to be his mother. I never planned to hurt either of you physically." The dementia scheme was Russell's darkest idea, one I agreed to in a moment of weakness and desperation that I've regretted every day since. "Is this the part where I'm supposed to forgive you?" Trent asked. "No," she replied simply. "I don't expect or deserve forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that beneath the horrible choices I made, there was once something real." She gestured to the box. "Russell kept every drawing and school project you ever made, every Father's Day card, every newspaper clipping about your success. Whatever his failures, and they were monumental, some part of him was proud of you. Pride without integrity is meaningless." Melody nodded. "Perhaps, but we're all made of contradictions, Trent. Even you." She moved toward the door. "I've told Devin I'm leaving. Wished him well at MIT. I won't contact either of you again unless you reach out first." After she left, Trent stared at the box for a long time before finally opening it. Inside lay dozens of yellowed drawings, school awards, photos, and news clippings spanning decades. A paper trail of a childhood and career meticulously preserved. At the bottom, he found a sealed envelope addressed to him in his mother's handwriting. The date on the front indicated she had written it just days before her death. "My dearest Trent, if you're reading this, you've discovered the truth about Russell and Melody, and they have faced the consequences of their actions. I have no doubt you implemented the protective measures I prepared with precision and effectiveness. You've always been methodical in everything you do. What you may not understand is why I kept Russell in my life knowing what he was. The answer is complex, but it begins with recognizing that people are rarely entirely good or entirely evil. Russell was weak, selfish, and at times ruthless, but he was also the young man who once stayed up all night to finish my first project models when the deadline seemed impossible. He was the father who taught you to ride a bike when I was too busy with the business. He was a man of profound flaws who occasionally rose above them. I stayed with him partly to protect you from scandal, partly because I understood his weaknesses intimately, and yes, partly because despite everything, some ember of love remained. Not every day, and never blindly, but enough to make me choose monitoring over destruction. Now you face a similar choice in the aftermath of betrayal. You can spend years ensuring Russell and Melody never rise again. guarding against every possible resurgence of their influence. Or you can recognize that true power lies not in destruction, but creation, building something so magnificent that the betrayal becomes merely a footnote in your story. Your foundation is not built on sand, my son. It is built on everything I tried to teach you about integrity, resilience, and the courage to begin again after loss. Whatever you choose, know that I am proud of the man you've become and confident in the man you will yet be. With eternal love, Mom. The letter slipped from Trent's fingers as he leaned back in his chair, looking out at the Phoenix skyline his mother had helped shape. For the first time since her death, he felt something in his chest loosen, not forgiveness for the betrayers, but release from the grip of vengeance that had consumed him. He picked up the phone and called Devin. "I've been thinking about Massachusetts," he said when his son answered. "About relocating Cornerstone's headquarters eventually. New markets, new challenges." "Really?" Devin sounded cautiously excited. "What changed your mind?" Trent's eyes fell on his mother's letter. "I'm ready to build something new." 2 months later, as summer heat baked the Arizona desert, Trent and Devin stood in the ceremonial groundbreaking for Cornerstone Development's most ambitious project yet, Vivian Place, a mixed-use development combining affordable housing, business incubator spaces, and community facilities. As cameras captured Trent's speech, he looked out at the gathered crowd, business associates, employees, friends who had stood by him through the scandal, and felt the weight of the past year shifting into something different. Not forgotten, not diminished, but transformed into foundation rather than burden. "My mother taught me that true strength lies not just in what we build, but in why we build it," he told the audience. Vivian Place represents a new beginning, not just for Cornerstone Development, but for me personally. That evening, as he and Devin reviewed the preliminary MIT housing options, Trent's phone chimed with a text from Byron Foster. Melody boarded her flight to Chicago this morning. Russell's remaining assets unfrozen by federal investigators. Minimal value recovered. Chapter closed. Trent read the message, then deleted it without response. "Everything okay, Dad?" Devin asked. "Yes," Trent replied, surprised to find he meant it. Just the past making its final exit. He would never forgive Russell or Melody for their betrayal. The pain they caused would always remain part of his story. But as his mother had understood, some foundations could be salvaged even after catastrophic damage, reinforced, redesigned, repurposed into something stronger than before. Trent Calloway had always been a builder. Now, surrounded by the blueprints of his future spread across the table, he finally understood that the most important reconstruction had been his own. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.